Welcome to The Explainer. Let's dive right into a completely baffling human behavior. We are unpacking the fascinating psychology behind why we conceal our romantic feelings from the exact people we care about the most. It seems totally counterintuitive, right? But by the end of this, you're going to understand the invisible mechanics driving it all. So let's confront a relatable, slightly uncomfortable truth. You've been there, right? You really liked someone, and instead of showing it, you did the exact opposite. We tend to think that hiding our feelings means we just lack interest, or maybe we're just unsure. But psychologically speaking, the reality is we often hide our feelings not because we don't care enough, but because we care way too much. I mean, think about the mental gymnastics. You've probably exhibited some of these totally contradictory behaviors yourself. Acting distant, keeping those replies painfully casual, pretending you literally couldn't care less, all while privately overthinking every single text, every glance, every tiny interaction. You try your absolute hardest to make sure they never find out how you actually feel. But why on earth do we put ourselves through this?
Section 1. The Paradox of Hidden Feelings.
To really get this, we have to unpack a massive misconception. The idea that attraction naturally leads to expression. Well, for a lot of people, liking someone doesn't feel exciting. It actually feels profoundly dangerous. Hiding those feelings acts as emotional armor. Because let's be real, vulnerability creates this terrifying uncertainty. You're exposed. And the moment you care, your brain suddenly registers that you are no longer safe. Because the second you catch feelings, you suddenly put so much on the line. The comfort of your friendship, your emotional control, that cool, collected image you've been maintaining, and fundamentally, your entire sense of safety. So instead of moving toward the person, your instinct literally screams at you to pull away, to protect all those assets. And you end up trapped in this very specific internal monologue. Hey, if I don't say it, I can't be rejected. That hiding, that's the emotional armor we just talked about. It just feels so much safer in the moment. You rationalize that if you never admit what this connection means to you, maybe it won't absolutely crush you if it goes wrong. But quietly, that armor is keeping you completely stuck. Section 2. The fear of being seen. Now, you might find yourself paralyzed by one specific heavy thought. What if they see the part of me that wanted something, and it just wasn't enough? Confessing feelings isn't just about getting a yes or a no. It's risking being seen in a deeply personal, incredibly raw way. You're basically handing them the keys and saying, you matter to me, and your response has the power to wreck me. For anyone with a history of shame or emotional invalidation, that level of exposure, it feels downright unbearable. We trick ourselves into thinking we're just evaluating a romantic outcome, right? Asking, do they like me back? But actually, scratch that. Your nervous system is asking a pure survival question. Is it safe for me to want something this openly? And if your nervous system decides the answer is no, you hide. Not because you're playing games, but because being emotionally visible feels like a literal threat to your safety. Section 3. The friendship safety net. Okay, so what happens when romantic feelings enter a familiar, safe space, like with a best friend? The panic totally shifts. It's no longer just a fear of rejection. It morphs into this paralyzing fear of ruining a meaningful connection. What if things get weird? What if they pull away entirely? You become terrified of losing the one version of them that you're currently guaranteed to have in your life. It all comes down to a core psychological truth. Your brain prefers a familiar pain over an uncertain risk. So what do? We stay in the comfort of almost. We hang out in the safety of maybe. We preserve the relationship in the only form that still feels safe, all while privately grieving the possibility of what could have been. Section 4. Your attachment style matters. It's fascinating because two completely different attachment styles can arrive at the exact same destination. Anxious individuals, they hide their feelings because they fear abandonment. They're terrified of being too much. Meanwhile, avoidant individuals hide because real intimacy feels like a trap. They fear engulfment and losing their independence. So one fears abandonment, the other fears engulfment. But despite having totally opposite psychological fears, both styles result in the exact same confusing behavior. They both act like they care way less than they actually do. The surface-level behavior simply does not match the profound depth of emotion simmering underneath it all. Section 5. The illusion of emotional control. People who value control over honesty become incredibly careful. They become impossible to read. You know the type. They'll type out a super vulnerable text, stare at it, and then delete the whole thing. They'll flirt a little and then immediately pull back. And they do all of this holding on to a false belief. If I can contain it, it can't hurt me. They genuinely think that managing their outward expression protects them from being at the mercy of someone else's response. But here is the fatal flaw in that logic. Emotional suppression doesn't erase the feeling. Not at all. It just pushes it inward. That suppressed energy turns into endless overthinking. It breeds intense jealousy when that person talks to someone else. It makes you send incredibly mixed signals. And ultimately, it leads to total emotional exhaustion. It might look like control on the outside, but inside, it's just pure chaos. Section 6. The true costs of hiding. The harsh reality is sometimes the person we're most afraid of isn't our crush at all. It's ourselves. Liking someone forces us to confront things we might not be ready to look at. Acknowledging those feelings exposes our own vulnerabilities. It might reveal that we crave closeness or that we're way lonelier than we ever admitted. It might remind us of a time when we were taught that caring makes us look weak. Suddenly realizing that someone else actually has the power to matter to you, that can be incredibly disorienting. Which brings us to a few questions you absolutely must ask yourself if you're stuck in this cycle. First up, am I protecting my peace or am I just protecting myself from being seen? Because if you're constantly hiding to avoid immediate discomfort, you might actually just be hiding from your own reflection. Next question, am I preserving the friendship or preserving my fear? You really have to ask yourself if staying in this comfortable limbo is genuinely about emotional safety, or if you're just using the friendship as a convenient shield so you don't have to take a brave step forward. And finally, am I being careful or am I abandoning my own honesty? The crucial takeaway here is that the true cost of this illusion of control is heavy. It keeps you stuck overanalyzing instead of just finding out where you stand. And tragically, it can leave you forever grieving a connection that never even had the chance to exist. Learning the difference between true emotional wisdom and simple emotional avoidance changes absolutely everything. So I want to leave you with a final thought to explore on your own time. Have you ever hidden your feelings from someone you really liked? And looking back on it now, why do you honestly think you did it? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. I hope it gives you the clarity you need to stop hiding and start living a little more honestly. Catch you next time.